She revealed the bold truth to a billionaire CEO, and his transformative kiss changed everything. Emma Jacobs stared at the screen, the barrage of lines of code filling her vision with a chaotic blur. She adjusted her glasses, feeling the tension build within her as she scrolled through the company's internal documents, searching for a solution to an innocuous line of code that had gone awry. Instead, she stumbled upon a folder labeled Safety Compliance Reports. A prickling sensation crept up her spine when she noticed the inconsistencies inside. It was her father's relentless teachings on integrity and hard work that echoed in her mind. How could she reconcile her ambition with this potentially life-altering discovery? What if exposing this could jeopardize her father's healthcare? A confrontation loomed ahead, an inescapable moral dilemma tightening its grip around her heart that Emma's mind raced. Anxiety coiled in her chest, making it difficult to breathe as she weighed the risk of confronting corporate wrongdoing against the fear of losing stability in her life. Her colleagues flitted between tasks, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their youthful ambitions. Did they even grasp the sacrifices she made daily, juggling lab work with caring for her ailing father? She could feel the exhaustion seep into her bones, yet the urge to make her voice heard was overpowering. But the thought of losing her precarious intern position and the income dependent on it tightened the knots of dread in her stomach. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, a battlefield between fear and determination. The vivid documents lay before her like a dark secret demanding to be unveiled. Was she a whistleblower or merely a survivor? In the vast corporate machine, what could one voice possibly change? She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her father's legacy pressing against her resolve. It was an unyielding reminder of the fight for integrity she had been raised on. Yet, edging closer to the ultimate showdown with the company's charismatic CEO, Ethan Blake, sent seismic waves of apprehension coursing through her veins, in the back of her mind. She replayed the brief but intense moments they had intersected, the way he navigated the room with effortless confidence, eyes flickering over his team with a mix of authority and charm. But there was something haunting behind that polished veneer, a vulnerability hinted at beneath the layers of ambition. How did someone who emanated such superiority turn out to be so deeply flawed? Would their confrontation be a battle or a push? Deep down, an unexpected tide of longing surged as she thought about challenging him, sharing her findings. The kiss they could so vulnerably share felt distant but tantalizing at once. The clock ticked, drowning out her racing thoughts. Realization dawned like a lightning strike. There would be no escaping this impending confrontation. She would have to stand tall amidst the turmoil once again, confronting the erosion of her values versus her obligations. Her chest tightened to the point of agonizing pressure. Could she truly risk everything at this moment? The line between her pursuit of justice and the safety of her family blurred with every heartbeat, leaving her teetering on the brink of an overwhelming decision that could shatter everything into pieces. And just then, the door swung open, revealing a silhouette that would change everything for Emma, stirring the chaos within her heart to unfathomable heights. The figure that entered was unmistakably Ethan Blake. Tall and imposing, he advanced with a purposeful stride that sent Emma's heart racing. For a moment, she felt ensnared by his gaze, piercing, challenging, and so magnetically intense. But beyond that tangible heat swirled a sense of uncertainty, a coiled tension stemming from the weight of the information she had unearthed. Ethan halted before her desk, a blend of curiosity and concern etched into his expression. "Emma, you look unsettled. Is everything all right?" His voice, a deep, rich timbre, invoked conflicting emotions within her, teasing out her vulnerability while igniting her fire. This tension had been building ever since their first meeting, and now it peaked sharply against the backdrop of her gut-wrenching discovery. She inhaled deeply, summoning every ounce of her resolve. "I found something in the compliance reports, Ethan," something that needs to be addressed. Her words felt bold yet wobbly, as if they were a blade poised to slice through layers of deception wrapped around the corporation. Ethan studied her, his brow furrowing slightly. You're saying that you've discovered wrongdoing? What exactly? The question hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Emma felt a swirl of doubt bubble within her. Would he dismiss her concern, as she feared? Would he see her as a naive intern playing with fire? The stakes felt monumental, her heart racing at the thought of touching the raw nerve of corporate integrity. What I need to discuss could jeopardize the company's reputation, perhaps even your leadership, but it's crucial, she said, tapping into her resolve. Her father's teachings whispered in her ear, a reminder of the importance of standing up for what's right, no matter the cost. Ethan's gaze hardened, an intensity sparking behind his eyes. Then let us talk about it, he replied, motioning for her to lead. The very fact that he was willing to hear her out lightened the load on her conscience, even just slightly. But the reality of their potential confrontation crushed back down again. As they moved toward a conference room draped in modern elegance, Emma's thoughts tangled with visions of her father's struggling health. Her father had sacrificed everything to provide her with this rare opportunity, and she couldn't shatter that trust. Yet, how could she remain complicit in an environment that thrived on deceit? Sitting across from Ethan at a polished conference table, the silence thickened, electrified with unspoken tension. Emma gulped, feeling the weight of the task ahead of her. She could either expose what lay beneath the surface, what could tarnish lives and futures, or choose to stay silent and protect her father's precarious situation. What did you find? Ethan asked again, this time more pressing, his curiosity shifting to impatience. The urgency in his voice struck a nerve, reminding her of the moment she first saw the discrepancies in the reports. Emma's heart raced as memories flooded her mind. There are discrepancies in safety compliance that could potentially endanger patients and mislead regulators, she finally forced out. Ethan's face paled slightly, eyes narrowing. The shift in his demeanor stirred a storm within her, a mix of fear and hope. Yet, the vulnerability in her words felt like a tipping point. You realize this could come back on you too, right? Are you prepared for that? Ethan's challenge pushed her further. His certainty scratched at her ambition, igniting her desire to stand tall and unwavering in her conviction. More than anything, she whispered, the flicker of rebellion spilling out in her tone. The moment stretched long, the atmosphere fizzling with intensity as Ethan leaned forward, the lines of understanding and determination intersecting in his gaze. Then we will fight for the truth together. In that instant, Emma sensed a profound shift within herself. She wasn't just a struggling intern, she was an advocate of integrity, ready to face the storm head-on. But the looming costs of their newfound alliance drilled through her with painful clarity. As they reached a unity of purpose, she realized the depths of their connection had only begun to pulsate in that moment of shared resolve. Charged with expectation for what lay ahead, the door opened again, this time revealing a stark reminder that corporate politics were not the only dangers Emily would have to navigate. Would their combined strengths be enough to face the storm brewing on the horizon? Emma sat with her back straight, her mind racing as she struggled to formulate a strategy. The weight of the compliance issues pressed down on her, but now she found herself in a delicate dance with Ethan. His presence was electrifying, but the unknowns loomed larger than ever. How could they possibly tackle something so deeply entrenched in the company's operations? What if no action was taken, and their efforts unraveled everything she and her father had fought for? Let us discuss how we can handle this. Ethan's words snapped her focus back to the moment. Don't be afraid to lay out your thoughts. The invitation startled her. He wanted her input, treated her as an equal. But could she possess the confidence required to navigate this treacherous path? Emma took a breath, confidence warring with anxiety in her chest. First, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. We need to analyze the reports in detail. Identify the patterns of discrepancy, then map out who would be responsible. We need facts. Ethan nodded, his expression shifting from concern to admiration. Good. Absolutely, we can identify the key players who may have turned a blind eye. It's a good starting point, but it's not enough. She could feel the stakes escalating with every word exchanged. And then we must prepare a presentation for the board, outlining our findings and potential repercussions. Transparency has to be our priority. Exactly, Ethan said, leaning closer. But also be prepared for pushback. A lot of people are going to want to protect their interests over the truth. The pulse of urgency in his voice resonated with Emma. Would she truly be ready to face the backlash? Doubts circled her thoughts like vultures, waiting for a sign of weakness. Yet, the spark of ambition ignited once more. She couldn't slide back into the shadows. This was her moment. I'm prepared, she finally declared, her assertion echoing the lessons her father taught her. I won't allow the wrongdoings to stand if there's a chance to fix them. Then join me on this, Ethan urged earnestly. His eyes bore into hers, the weight of their shared goal creating an almost magnetic connection. Emma felt something shift. Exhilaration sputtered against fear, the possibility of impacting the company's future surging like electricity through her veins. They spent hours combing through data, dissecting each entry until fatigue blurred their focus, but the fire in her spirit never faded. Each moment shared crafted a bond of trust and secrecy as they uncovered twisted layers of deceit hidden beneath the company's pristine veneer. Emma felt herself changing, evolving, transforming from a timid intern to a fierce advocate of integrity. Yet, the stakes weren't just corporate, they layered over her personal life too. She felt the looming shadow of her father's health, a constant reminder that her actions could tip the scale. Was she making the right choice? Every time the thoughts crept in, she shut them down, determined to see this through. Finally, they paused, surrounded by stacks of reports and digital screens lit up with their findings. We can take this to the board next week, Ethan suggested, breaking the heavy silence. But as his words hung in the air, an unmistakable tension thickened. The reality of their decision was weighing exponentially. Emma's heart raced. What would happen if the board rejected their claims? How would she cope with the consequences, especially knowing her father's sacrifices were rooted in this very ground? I need to know I can rely on you completely, Ethan said, cutting through her swirling thoughts. The vulnerability in his eyes was disarming, and it left her teetering on the edge of fearlessness. I won't back down, she vowed, her words firm. But she also felt a tremor of doubt gnawing at her resolve. What lay ahead would demand every ounce of her newfound strength. As Ethan extended a tentative hand, ready to seal the agreement in a moment of unity, Emma felt something new stirring within her. This wasn't just about corporate honesty anymore. It was about who she was becoming. But just as their fingers brushed, the door swung open yet again. A breach in their sanctuary. A new voice cut through the tension, a voice that would inevitably challenge everything Emma was beginning to know about herself. Was she truly ready to face whatever storm would follow? As the individual entered, Emma braced herself for the confrontation that loomed ahead, the realization that her journey had only just begun. The intruder stood in the doorway, an imposing figure silhouetted by the hallway lights. Emma's heart sank as recognition dawned. It was Laura Sanders, the head of compliance. Her reputation preceded her, as someone resistant to change and fiercely protective of her domain. This was the very challenge Emma had feared. Emma, Laura greeted, her tone laced with condescension. What are you doing here at this hour? Emma could feel the weight of scrutiny in Laura's gaze. She straightened her back instinctively, getting ready to defend her work. This was an unexpected confrontation, and she could sense Ethan's tension at her side, their earlier camaraderie replaced by a shared anxiety. We're reviewing the compliance reports and preparing a presentation for the board regarding significant discrepancies, Emma stated, trying to maintain composure. Laura's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. And you think the two of you, without any prior experience in such matters, can address this? Presuming you know more than a seasoned department head? The challenge struck deep, but Emma stood firm, fighting the urge to step back. This was a moment to define herself. We believe transparency is key to regaining trust within the company, Laura. Avoiding the issues won't make them disappear. The air crackled with unsaid accusations. Every word exchanged felt like a match, igniting a fire that could consume her professional standing. Yet, she recognized this conflict as not only an external battle, but also an internal one, a test of her identity as a capable professional. She had to prove she belonged. You're treading on dangerous ground, Emma, Laura replied. Whispers of discontent from your department, could very well return to haunt you. Her voice was smooth yet threatening, layers of warning woven into her words. Maybe it's time those whispers turned into a voice for change, Emma countered, surprising even herself with the defiance lacing her tone. From the corner of her eyes, she saw Ethan's nod of approval. It fueled her determination. This was a moment of reckoning for her aspirations, her career, and her spirit. Laura glared, momentarily at a loss for words. Yet Emma could see the calculating thoughts processing behind that sharp gaze. Suddenly, Laura stepped closer, narrowing the space that separated them. You may have your reasons, but know this. Exposing those in authority around here is a surefire way to limit your own opportunities. Emma's chest tightened as a flood of uncertainty washed over her. Was she genuinely willing to challenge the status quo, despite the looming personal and professional repercussions? Her relationship with her father hung in the balance. But in that moment, the hesitation transformed into clarity. I owe it to my father to ensure the company values integrity. Protecting those who have faltered isn't a legacy I wish to partake in. A moment of silence ensued, thickening the tension in the air. Laura's eyes flickered with a mixture of anger and surprise. You're making a grave mistake, Emma. You have no idea the game you're playing. With that, Laura retreated, leaving Emma breathless in her wake. Did she truly comprehend the risks she was taking? Ethan broke through her thoughts, his voice low yet filled with belief. You handled that brilliantly, Emma. You just took a step beyond a timid intern. You asserted yourself in a way that will resonate. Emma's heart raced, exhilaration mixed with fear coursed through her veins. She realized this experience was stretching her boundaries, forcing her to confront her deepest insecurities as she navigated a complex web of corporate morality. But doubt flickered alongside ambition. Would this revelation lead her to sound decisions or chaos? As new layers of uncertainty unfurled, she clutched the documents tighter, a physical anchor in the uncertainty swirling around her. As the weight of her confrontation settled, Emma sensed the looming question. Was she ready to grip the reins of her destiny, even if it meant facing a backlash that could alter everything she knew? She needed clarity to shift from her instincts into calculated strategy for the impending board meeting. However, the whispers that echoed in her mind lingered. What if the struggle for truth risked everything her father had built? Determined yet terrified, she prepared for the next critical step. Could she gather the strength needed to solidify her place in the company and in her own life? The path ahead was murky, each decision pulling her deeper into an uncharted world of professional intrigue. Her next move could either fortify her or bring her to her knees. Emma's resolve crystallized as she glanced at Ethan, realizing they were in this together. But how much were they willing to invest emotionally and professionally in a battle that could reshape their destinies? As she contemplated the precarious balance of courage and risk, she also felt the stirrings of an unexpected alliance and urge to confide in Ethan beyond their professional lives. As they prepared to dive deeper into their findings, Emma sensed the looming storm ahead, and with it, the simmering realization that her next confrontation would not just test her tenacity, but also her capacity for vulnerability. Would she confront the reality blooming between them, or would the chaos of corporate shadows take precedence? Emma sat at her desk, staring at the stacks of compliance reports spread out before her like an uncharted map. The weight of Laura's confrontation hung heavily in the air, an oppressive fog dampening her thoughts. Ethan was there, quietly flipping through documents, but she felt miles away from him, ensnared in her own uncertainty. Every glance toward the door elicited a pulse of anxiety. What if Laura decided to escalate her threats? The whispers of discontent had already ignited a fire she feared she might not be able to contain. She needed a strategy, not just for the board meeting, but for her very essence as an employee, as a daughter, and as a person. Emma's mind raced. Remembering Laura's face, that mixture of anger and surprise, solidified her resolve. She had fought for integrity in the shadows, and now the spotlight was hers to command. Yet the shadow also whispered of repercussions, limits to her career, to her relationship with her father, and to her identity. She felt trapped between ambition and loyalty. Hey, you okay? Ethan's voice sliced through her internal tumult. There was concern etched on his features as he leaned closer, lowering his voice. You were brilliant with Laura. Just keep that fire alive. The board needs to see it. His encouragement served as a lifeline, but also reminded her of the invisible ties that bound her to her father's expectations. Was she brave enough to shatter those bonds? What happens if we fail, Ethan? She asked, the words escaping her before she could rein them in. What if we put everything on the line and it turns against us? Ethan met her gaze, the intensity in his eyes urging her to confront her doubts. Failure is part of growth, Emma. But standing down could be the real mistake. You're stepping into a growth phase, even if it feels chaotic right now. You can't erase your father's legacy, but you can redefine it. Maybe there are different ways of honoring it. Emma nodded slowly, letting his words wash over her. Each phrase resonated with clarity she allowed herself to entertain. She had the ability to redefine her narrative without dismantling her father's legacy. She just had to be unrelenting in her pursuit of change. The next few hours slipped into focused intensity as they sifted through the data, uncovering deeper discrepancies that overlooked compliance protocols. The facts spoke loudly, illuminating not just errors but cracks in the company's foundation of trust. Each discovery reinforced her sense of purpose. She needed to ensure the board was aware of the potential ramifications tied to ignoring these issues. Their teamwork began to flow with an electricity Emma hadn't expected. Ethan's keen insights pierced through her doubts, giving her a clearer understanding of the stakes. She realized that the partnership was more than transactional. It felt personal, a tether she hadn't known she craved. Can you believe we're digging into this? Ethan said with a slight grin, the tension between them easing momentarily. Just think if we pull this off, we could actually be catalysts for real change. At that moment, something ignited within her. An exhilarating rush surged through her veins. Was it merely professional ambition or something deeper developing between them? Emma felt vulnerable, yet exhilarated by the possibilities as they worked late into the night. Details blurred into shared laughter and growing frustrations. The line between personal and professional continued to blur, and she noticed the way he looked at her, a glimmer of admiration mixed with respect and something unspoken. She swiftly readjusted her focus. This was no time for distraction. The stakes were too high, and Laura's intimidating warnings still loomed over her. But in the throes of strategies and solutions, Emma found herself pondering the next steps. The looming board meeting was more than a presentation. It would be a battleground where her convictions would stand wholly exposed. As fatigue settled into her bones, Emma questioned whether she was truly ready to risk everything she had fought for in the pursuit of honesty. But then again, for the first time, it was her moment to drive change, perhaps even redefine her own expectations and her father's legacy. Unsure of how to blend these elements harmoniously, she straightened the papers in front of her with a renewed determination. The door creaked open slightly, and Ethan looked up, a semi-smirk dancing at the corners of his lips. Ready to shake the boardroom? Emma inhaled sharply, determination heavy in her chest, but uncertainty tinged the edges. We need to unveil the truth. With a nod, their agreement solidifying the bond that had formed, Emma took her final deep breath before the ultimate plunge. As they prepared to finalize their presentation, an unexpected realization flickered. What if navigating this professional tumult also required her to reveal her vulnerabilities to not only the board, but to Ethan as well? With that weight resting alongside the prospect of true change, she could only hope she was ready for what came next. What would it take for her to embrace her emergence, both as a whistleblower and a potential partner? As her thoughts spiraled, she felt a sense of impending revelation pulsate through her. How far would she go to create a courageous narrative that intertwined the boundaries of ambition and authenticity, risking everything to carve her own path? The night deepened, casting shadows across the room as Emma and Ethan immersed themselves in their presentation. Each hour stretched past midnight, the flickering screen illuminating their faces, revealing the shared determination igniting a silent bond between them. Emma meticulously wove the compliance issues into a narrative, believing that clarity could turn the tide. Her heart raced, both with the electricity of potential victory and the undercurrent of anxiety that never faded. Emma, Ethan's voice broke through her concentration. You've got to present this passionately. The numbers alone won't convince them. His words stirred something within her, an urgency to carve her place in the conversation. She hadn't just stumbled upon facts. She was igniting a call for accountability, a piercing spotlight on misconduct. Passion, right? I guess I've been so focused on the facts, I forgot the human element, she admitted, noting his encouraging expression. Exactly. Make them feel the stakes, not just hear them, he encouraged, folding his arms, studying her intently, as if unraveling her deepest strengths. It both thrilled and unsettled her. Emma turned back to her work, but found her thoughts circling back to Ethan. Their late-night collaboration had developed an unpredictable rhythm, one that humored her nerves and appalled her sensibilities. She had devoted her life to professional expectations, yet here she was, on the verge of something authentically transformative. What if she embraced that surge of feeling instead of stifling it? As they finalized their slides, the noise of their keyboards replaced the silence. It was an intimate chaos that fueled her resolve. She glanced at Ethan, who was frowning in concentration, and a warmth spread through her chest, courage lining her veins. Ethan, she started tentatively, her voice barely above a whisper. What if I'm making the wrong choice? What if this doesn't serve our goals, or worse, tarnishes my father's name? Ethan straightened, his lips tightening. You can't think like that. You're not just honoring him, you're living your truth. What you're doing is brave, Emma. The sincerity in his eyes challenged her lingering doubts. She leaned back, assessing the gravity of what he said. Every emotion she waded through had brought her to this fruition, not just as an employee, but as a woman yearning for authenticity. Her father's legacy would not be sullied by her stand for truth, it would be defined by it. She exhaled slowly, letting go of the last remnants of fear. It wasn't just about her career anymore. It was about integrity, responsibility, and forging her own path. Okay, Emma breathed, a newfound assertion rising within her. Let us make this bold. The next day's board meeting loomed large, and she felt the rush of anticipation mingle with apprehension. Emma meticulously crafted her presentation to pack an emotional punch. The documents became more than numbers. They transformed into a narrative of their company's integrity. In the conference room, she meticulously laid out her findings, her hands steady despite the pulse of adrenaline. As she spoke, she felt each word resonate, echoing with the conviction she had unearthed. Watching the expressions on the board members' faces shift from skepticism to concern ignited her spirit. This was the moment. When she finished, silence draped the room like a heavy fog. Laura's glare was a cutting blade, but it only steeled Emma's resolve. Thank you, Emma. The CEO finally spoke, his voice steady yet measured, eyes narrowing as he assessed the severity of the issue. The depth of these compliance breaches is alarming. We cannot ignore our duty to uphold ethical standards. As discussions ensued, Emma felt the balance tipping, her heart swelling with triumph. Yet, just as she began to relax, Laura interjected with a pointed remark, a warning cloaked in partial approval. The confrontation left Emma shaken. Could she truly endure the fallout of her actions? Just then, Ethan caught her eye, and their connection pulsed across the room, an acknowledgement of their shared risk. When the meeting adjourned, Ethan approached her, a mix of pride and concern etched into his features. You did it, Emma. You stood your ground. She smiled, though the weight of uncertainty clung to her. But what happens now? Are we ready for the backfire? Just be ready to face it head-on, he urged. There was something resonating beneath his words, an understanding of the personal stakes and the risks they both had taken. As they stepped out into the dim corridor, the fluorescent lights above flickered, casting a wavering glow on their faces. Ethan turned to her, and for a moment, the familiar tension enveloped them, their connection pulsing with unacknowledged feelings. Emma, he said softly, leaning closer. Whatever happens next, trust in yourself. You're stronger than you believe. In that moment, a shift occurred. The unguarded vulnerability coursing between them felt electric, offering a glimpse into something deeper. Why had she spent so long afraid to embrace both her truth and the burgeoning feelings connecting her to Ethan? Before she could answer, he took a bold step forward, the air electric with possibilities. Her pulse quickened as their eyes locked, breaths synchronizing. Just as she prepared to speak, maybe to draw back, or perhaps to embrace the moment fully, an emergency alert echoed down the corridor. breaking their intimate atmosphere. Emma froze, the world around them clattering back into focus. The boardroom had changed everything. But would she now be able to grapple not only with the challenges ahead, but also with the undeniable connection sparking between her and Ethan? Do you think we can handle both? Emma asked, uncertainty creeping in again. Ethan's expression shifted, a blend of determination and warmth. We're in this together. Her heart raced both with the weight of an uncertain future and the exhilarating potential of a burgeoning partnership. The real question rested precariously at the edge of her defenses. Could she navigate this duality of ambition and vulnerability, or would something monumental slip from her grasp? As the sound of the alert faded into the backdrop, a single thought surged within her: whatever lay ahead, she would face it head-on. But would she muster the courage to embrace what risk meant for her heart? Emma stood in the corridor, feeling the weight of the moment wash over her like a tide. The emergency alert still echoed in her ears, drawing her attention back to the impending storm. Questions flitted through her mind, each demanding clarity. Had she ignited change or just stirred the waters of discontent? As the people around her rushed past, their faces painted with varying shades of concern and urgency, she felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. Ethan's words reverberated within her: trust in yourself. The saying echoed like a mantra, countering the self-doubt gnawing at her instincts. Emma. A voice sliced through her reverie. Laura appeared, a storm cloud in human form. We need to have a word. Now. Swallowing hard, Emma followed Laura into a nearby conference room, shutting the door as the oppressive air thickened with tension. The sleek table gleamed under the harsh lighting, but Emma's focus remained fixed on Laura. Your presentation was bold, Laura began, her tone cloaked in skepticism. But bold isn't always appropriate. We need to discuss your approach and the potential ramifications for our image. Images of the board's reactions swirled in Emma's head, their surprise morphing into concern. With all due respect, Laura, we can't shy away from the truth. The integrity of our company demands it, even if it puts some project at risk. Laura's lips turned down at the corners, and Emma sensed her readiness to push back. Your idealism would get us in hot water. This isn't just about you. It's about the whole company. And perhaps, Emma suddenly thought, it was about more than just the compliance. It was personal, her father's legacy intricately entwined with the fabric of these decisions. I realize that, she replied, firm yet vulnerable. But if we don't take the right stand now, we risk losing everything we've built. Laura's eyes narrowed, assessing her carefully. For a moment, understanding flickered behind her irritation, making Emma wonder if the other woman recognized a semblance of courage in her. But just as quickly, the intensity shifted. You need to make sure your personal feelings don't cloud your judgment. If you fail to do that, I'm afraid I can't support you in future endeavors. Crushed between the weight of responsibility and the desire to assert herself, Emma's decision crystallized. I refuse to compromise my integrity for the sake of protecting a reputation built on lies. This goes beyond the company, it's about doing what's right. Just after Emma finished her declaration, the intercom crackled, and a voice echoed through the hallways announcing an emergency meeting with top executives, all eyes on her findings. Suddenly, the conversation felt much larger than just her and Laura. Emma steeled her nerves, reminded of the support she had found in Ethan moments earlier. I'll attend the meeting, Emma said, her voice steady despite the tumultuous feelings whirling inside her. But I want to present my findings on my terms. Laura's expression hardened. She opened her mouth to argue, but then hesitated. Emma recognized that the last shred of civility between them hung in the balance. A truce, maybe? Very well, Laura finally relented, though the tension in her voice remained palpable. But I'll be there, Emma. You may not be ready for what comes next. Emerging from the conference room, Emma felt an overwhelming rush. She had faced Laura, asserting her beliefs when it mattered most. Yet this victory was shadowed by the uncertainty of the meeting looming just moments away. With rapid footsteps, she sought out Ethan. He leaned against the wall, focused, his brows furrowed in worry. Upon meeting her gaze, his expression softened. You okay? He asked, his voice low but urgent. I just had a run-in with Laura, Emma admitted, her heart racing. But I stood firm. I think I'm ready for this meeting. Ethan's eyes sparked with admiration. Then let us go show them what we're made of. As they strode toward the conference room, every step felt like a declaration of independence. She could feel her own momentum building, a blending of fear and excitement coursing through her veins. But just as they reached the door, Emma paused. "Ethan," she uttered, suddenly serious. "Whatever happens in there, I need you to know something." The door swung open, the hum of conversation spilling out to meet them. Ethan looked at her, an intensity inside his gaze that ignited the air between them. "You can tell me anything now or after." A moment stretched, the tumult of their unspoken feelings intensifying. The future held uncertainties, but the bond they had forged felt unbreakable. With a deep breath, Emma stepped inside the room, ready to wrestle with the unfolding complexities of her personal and professional spheres. The moment she entered, everyone turned to face her, the weight of expectation heavy in the air. Would she confront the chaos with the same resilience she had summoned against Laura? And if so, would it inspire Ethan to take his own leap, or would it sever the connection that had become all too palpable? As the meeting began, Emma made her choice. The stakes were high, a blend of ambition, truth, and the fear of losing everything she had fought for. The moment of truth had arrived, and Emma could feel nothing short of a reckoning await her. Could she find the strength to own not just her truth, but also what she felt for Ethan before the day ended? The moment Emma stepped into the conference room, she was met with a sea of expectant faces. The air buzzed with anxiety and intrigue, the executives radiating an intensity that made her skin prickle. She took a moment to scan the room, landing on the face of the CEO, Martin Cole. His eyes, sharp and assessing, seemed to cut through her uncertainties, challenging her determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," Martin began, his voice resonating with authority. "We're here to address the findings from Ms. Emma Mitchell regarding the compliance issues. Please, Emma, proceed." Her heart raced. This was at the moment she had been preparing for. But as she stood there, wrapped in their stares, doubt crept in. Taking a deep breath, she centered herself. Ethan's unwavering support just outside the doorway lingered like a safety net against the biting edge of fear. "Thank you, Martin. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this matter." Each word was deliberate, the weight of their implications imbued with her conviction. "The data I've compiled reveals serious inconsistencies that not only compromise our projects, but also put our integrity at enormous risk." She glanced around the room, gauging reactions. "If we don't act now, the consequences could be disastrous for our company and our future." A murmur rippled through the executives. Laura, seated at the far end, shot Emma a look tangled with both dread and disbelief. Emma pressed on, emphasizing the need for transparency over reputation. "It's essential to prioritize our values, even if it disrupts our current strategies. In fact, it might even reinforce our credibility in the long run." The tension in the room thickened as her words landed. A senior executive, Robert, interjected. "Emma, do you understand what you're risking? Our stakeholders expect us to deliver results, not testimonies of our failures. We can't afford to jeopardize our standing." That stung, but Emma refused to be deterred. "I understand the risks, Robert, but is the cost of maintaining an illusion worth the damage to our foundation? We have an obligation to uphold the truth, regardless of temporary discomfort." Martin rested his elbows on the table, his gaze unwavering as he contemplated her stance. "I appreciate your passion, Emma, but passion alone doesn't protect this company." "Perhaps," Emma countered, her voice gaining momentum, "but integrity builds trust, something we've been losing sight of. If we stand together and address these issues fundamentally, we can emerge stronger." As her conviction echoed in the air, she observed Ethan's subtle nod from behind the door. It imbued her with a renewed strength. This was not just about her, but the integrity of the entire corporation and her father's legacy intertwined with it. It's time to embrace the discomfort and lay the groundwork for a responsible future. When silence fell, Martin leaned back, evaluating her. "This isn't just a matter of projection. It's about risk management. Yet, the more I listen, the clearer your standpoint becomes. It's a delicate balance." Emma felt a flicker of hope, but doubt twisted in her gut. Would they see the value of accountability, or would the allure of success cloud their judgment? After several deliberations, Martin nodded. We will take this under advisement. Thank you, Emma. The meeting reconvened, the discussions beginning to ebb. Emma's heart still pounded, a mix of relief and apprehension flooding through her. She had spoken her truth, but the follow-through left her hanging in a precarious state of uncertainty. As the session ended, several executives departed, but Martin stayed behind, motioning her closer. Emma, commendable work today. You've shown courage. Before she could respond, Ethan stepped into the room, cutting through the remained anxiety with his presence. The tension between them was taut, an unspoken energy flaring as their eyes locked. Emma, Ethan said, putting an arm around her shoulder, you were incredible in there. You embraced the chaos. Just then, Martin turned his attention to Ethan, his expression flipping to scrutiny. And who do we have here? Ethan offered a firm handshake. Ethan Hayes, a colleague. Emma's partner, in a sense. Martin studied him for a moment before nodding curtly. Good to see support. You'll need it. And with that, he exited, leaving Emma and Ethan alone in the room, charged with possibilities. The air crackled as they turned to face each other. Do you think I made a mistake? Emma questioned, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan stepped closer. You didn't just stand up for what's right. You inspired them to think critically about the future. That's something worth fighting for. The warmth of his words seeped into her confidence, yet the uncertainty still gnawed at her. She needed to acknowledge the risk she had taken, not just regarding her career, but also with her feelings for him. I don't want to lose you, she finally admitted, swallowing hard. Ethan reached out, brushing his fingertips against her arm. You won, T. Whatever happens, I'm right here. A surge of emotion welled up, and before she could second-guess herself, Emma stepped forward, pulling Ethan closer. Their lips met in a tentative kiss that spoke of late-night conversations and the uncharted territory of their connection. When they parted, breathless yet grounded, Emma realized the stakes had shifted not only with her job, but with the direction of her heart as well. As they stood there, their future felt intertwined, but the question loomed larger than either had anticipated. What challenges awaited them next? Can love thrive under the weight of such uncertainty? Emma felt the pull of the looming decisions ahead, unsure if they would bring them together or drive them apart. Emma paced the length of her apartment, wrestling with the echoes of the conference room still lingering in her mind. Each step felt heavy, as the doubt that had clawed at her during the meeting seemed to multiply in the solitude. Alone with her thoughts, she questioned not only her professional choices, but also the personal stakes intertwined with her actions. Ethan's earlier words hung in the air like a double-edged sword. You inspired them, he had said. But what if her inspiration faltered? What if the consequences of her boldness surpassed her expectations? This was not just about compliance issues. It was about a potential fracture in the trust between her and the executives who had until now viewed her potential through an unforgiving lens. Glancing at her phone, Emma noted the time. It was late. No distractions were available, only the persistent loud ticking of the clock on the wall. She could feel the weight of her decisions settle upon her, suffocating yet demanding her attention. The risk of losing her job was palpable, yet the thought of silencing her voice felt even worse. In her mind, she began to construct strategies. She should prepare for the worst-case scenarios, think through possible fallout from her recommendations. She needed to research prior incidents in the industry that could support her case, concrete evidence that would highlight her commitment to ethical practices. If called upon again, she wanted to be armed with facts, a shield against the potential backlash of her principled stance. With each idea, each plan formed, Emma felt a flicker of determination ignite. But then, the thought of Ethan crept back in. How would he react if things turned sour? She couldn't afford to become reckless. They had begun to forge something profound, and the last thing she wanted was to jeopardize it by dragging him into her professional turmoil. Just as she was about to drown herself in self-doubt again, the doorbell rang. It startled her, breaking the cycle of her thoughts. She hesitated for just a moment before moving to open it, anticipation racing through her veins. Ethan stood at the threshold, still dressed in his business attire, slightly disheveled, yet undeniably captivating. Hey, he said, a gentle smile softening his features. I thought maybe you could use some company. Isn't it late? She questioned, her heart beating faster than before. Late is subjective when you're trying to construct your future, he replied, stepping inside and enveloping the room with his presence. I figured we could put our heads together. Emma felt a rush of relief. The chaos of her thoughts seemed to settle. I've been thinking obsessively about everything that happened today, she admitted, crossing her arms defensively. Ethan stepped closer, his expression shifting to a more serious note. That's normal. You took a huge risk, Emma. But you also planted the seed for change. That matters. Will it matter to them? She asked, vulnerability slipping through her otherwise careful veneer. What if they see me as a threat now? I'm only 30. I can't help but feel small. Small? He echoed, eyebrows raised. Emma, you just stood toe-to-toe with some of the most powerful people in the industry. You were anything but small. You were bold. His conviction reflected back at her, and she felt a swell of gratitude mixed with uncertainty. Could she allow herself to believe in her strength? She wrestled with the implications. I'm not just worried about my career, Ethan, she continued. This is part of my father's legacy. I cannot allow pride to blur my judgment. Ethan reached for her hands, grounding her in that moment. Then let us navigate it together. You don't have to shoulder this alone. I'm here, remember? The sincerity in his gaze fueled her resolve. Maybe she could trust not just in her potential, but also in their partnership. Together, they could face whatever storm brewed on the horizon. However, the thought of challenging her superiors again made her heart race anew. The stakes were rising, and uncertainty loomed heavily. Okay, she finally said, her voice steadier than before. Let us figure this out. But we need to be cautious. Caution is good, Ethan agreed. Let us be thorough. As they sat together, poring over her data and reevaluating her strategies, Emma felt a renewed sense of direction. She had always possessed the capability for this role, but perhaps it was time to realize that capability extended beyond her work life and into her heart. But amid their planning, one thought persisted in the back of her mind. What would happen when they did face the executives again? Emma realized the real test was yet to come, and it would reveal not only her professional resilience, but also her emotional commitment to Ethan. The moment of confrontation awaited her. Would she be ready to stand tall again, even if it meant risking everything again? The shadow of uncertainty loomed as they plotted their course through the storm ahead. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited them next would push her even further beyond her limits. Emma stood at the forefront of the conference room once more, the air thick with expectations. This was her moment to encapsulate her growth, her transformation into an advocate of integrity. After an intense board meeting that tested her resolve, she had taken the plunge. Now, with the results of their inquiries echoing in her ears, Emma was prepared to address all consequences that would arise from her actions. Her heart raced as she prepared to present no longer just an intern, but an empowered woman driven by purpose. The previous months had been filled with both chaos and enlightenment, which had steadily forged her into a relentless warrior for truth. The story she crafted didn't merely spotlight compliance failures. It illuminated her journey, her newfound voice, and her commitment to accountability. As she stepped to the front of the room, the memory of her past hesitations felt like a distant flicker. The echoes of doubt that once plagued her mind were replaced with clarity and confidence. Thank you all for your time today, she began, her voice steady and clear. I stand before you to address the critical compliance issues that threaten our core values and integrity. Our findings are not merely statistical data. They unveil a deeper truth, one that we must confront to evolve. Emma spoke with unyielding conviction, and every word became an anthem for her ambition. Her colleagues listened intently. The tides had shifted. Yet, she felt the familiar intensity of scrutiny from Laura, who sat griping her pen tightly. Gone was the timid intern reluctant to speak out. Now she was the embodiment of resolve. The stark contrast between her former self and the woman standing before them was palpable. Emma finished her presentation, articulately outlining the compliance issues and the dire need for reform. As silence enveloped the room, it became clear that she had not only captivated them, but had also broadened their horizons with the authenticity of her efforts. Martin, the CEO, leaned forward, intrigue evident in his expression. You've taken us through a maze of data, and yet it resonates with every document I've seen today. You are advocating not just for the company, but for proposed values that should define us. Throughout the meeting, Emma navigated through every question confidently, no longer the afraid intern, but an empowered individual willing to stand against the current of corporate neglect. In that moment, she provenly defended her father's legacy, intertwining her own ambitions with ideals of ethics and responsibility. After the discussions concluded, the board members commended Emma for her assertiveness. Not only had she encouraged change, but she also ignited a collective sense of accountability among her colleagues. As heads nodded in agreement, Emma felt the weight lift off her shoulders. With the meeting finished, she stepped outside, her pulse still racing but her heart buoyed by the triumph of her achievements. Ethan approached her, pride gleaming in his eyes. "You did it. You confronted the core of our issues and emerged as a force of change. I couldn't have done it without your support," she admitted, buoyed by their shared purpose. Each challenge they faced had woven a bond deeper than camaraderie. It had blossomed into the exploration of vulnerability and partnership. "Emma," Ethan said, a hint of seriousness tracing his tone, "I think what you did today, standing up and speaking out, was courageous beyond measure." The affirmation ignited something inside her, the recognition of her capacity for not just professional success, but personal growth. "Thank you for being by my side," she replied softly, feeling an emotional breakthrough envelop them. Their connection, once buried under past uncertainties, crystallized into something solid, promising. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she felt the heaviness in her heart transform into peace, the realization that she was not only being recognized for her achievements, but had ultimately defined her own narrative as someone willing to fight for justice. With renewed clarity, Emma paced toward her apartment, each step reaffirming her progress. She was deeply proud of her accomplishments. As she opened the door, the shadows of doubt no longer loomed large. They had transformed into stepping stones guiding her forward. The journey had revealed her strength, anchored in integrity, and the strongest bond was now her relationship with herself, with Ethan. Each moment they had shared, from strategizing together to navigating the storms of corporate complexity, migrated her towards a path of fulfillment that was clear. She conquered the obstacles that had once seemed insurmountable and emerged not just as a participant, but as a leader. Every lesson learned had contributed to this profound metamorphosis. Emma smiled, the future ahead unfolding with limitless possibilities. "I am prepared for whatever comes next," she thought, embracing the delicate balance of ambition and heart, armed with courageous conviction. Now was the time to elevate not just her career, but her heart, understanding that true fulfillment lay in the courage to be authentic. Emma had arrived at the crescendo of her evolution, ready to embrace a new chapter woven with purpose and connection. And she had no plans of looking back. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.